Jasper's back.
Yes.
Hey,
Jasper's back. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How about yourself?
Hey, when did you come back?
I'm fine.
I know it's not a big crowd, and that makes us discouraged sometimes, but it is summer and it's not raining. If it was raining, we would have more, we would have those guys who are out spraying, we would have guys who are out golfing, we would have soccer players and ball players, so it is what it is when it's summertime.
Right. Hello.
My name is Patty Bolt, I live in Kenosha, I lived there for some years.
Where are you?
I have multiple children and grandchildren now. So, that's what we're doing this for. Is our grandchildren and our children. Sometimes our children go, what are you doing? Why are you spending all this time on this tonight? You just have to go, well, wow.
Can you move the mic down a bit?
So I can be worse.
Well, I just want to see your pretty face.
Oh.
Thank you.
Anyway, so that's what we're doing this for. So, housekeeping, exits. I don't know where they all are. There's bathrooms and that. You guys know this hall, I don't. So, I'm expecting you can figure that out. I just want to do a little bit of other things. We have some brochures at the back. Please take a handful. Don't take one. Take a handful and share them out. And feel free to photocopy them if you want to. There's also some flags back there. If you know somebody that would like one to bring up their table, please take one. Yesterday I wasn't home because I was doing these things. And I get pictures from my kids and they're all over the crowd. With a 1.5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old all watching on the cabin. That's why we're doing this. So that the farmers can farm, the kids can play, the kids can grow up and become farmers. That's why we're doing this. So let's open it. Father, we thank you for this land. We thank you for this land called Alberta, all the beautiful farmland around Provost and all other stuff, and parts. And we thank you for the people that you have blessed to live in. But Father, we are stewards of this land, and we are trying to be the best stewards we can. So Jesus, we just ask that you be with us here tonight. Guide us, guard us, give us the words to use. We thank you for everything. Our first speaker for tonight is Sheane Meikle. I probably met Sheane about 3 years ago, and his beard is about the same, like less than on top. Sheane has done lots of work all over the nation. He's been in Saudi and Alberta and Saskatchewan. I think he's one of these guys that sort of likes to change jobs every 7 years or so. I don't know like that. You never know everything. So, Sheane Meikle is going to talk to you about history. He has taught himself that I never knew, never was taught in school, so if you didn't tell it in school, there's no way that kids are in school now. Anyway. Thanks.
He probably wants it right up here so they can cover. As Patty that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the relationship between Ottawa and what is now Alberta. So in the 1880s to about 1903, 1904, there was a huge settler movement within Western Canada, especially within territories, which are now Alberta and Saskatchewan. And there were huge amounts of Americans moving up. And they were thinking that they would like to have territories join the United States. And this made Ottawa very nervous. And that's one of the main reasons why they decided to form the provinces. How many people here know the little spot on the map in Stone? There's one person in the audience. I live 6 miles from East Stone. And at one point in time, it was a thriving community of around 500 people. Now it's got about 6 people there. Anybody have a clue what the Houston
They say they can't understand.
The United States of North America. How many people know the town of Rigby? There, we got a lot of people know that. Its original name was Kansas Ridge. The city of Airdrie was Yankee Valley. I gotta kind of lean into it. It's not picking up very well. So don't mind me, I don't normally lean on my elbows, but I gotta get the mic right up to me. So I also live near a district known as Dakota. All over Alberta and Saskatchewan, there are towns that have American names or used to have American names. And if you start going through it, I have a book on the names of Alberta towns, and there's a vast number of them in there that have got roots in American history.
What if we had that one as well? So
this was one of the main reasons why they decided that they were going to cut out the territories and make 2 provinces out of the southern part of the territories. So, in 1903, Sir Clifford Simpson made the following statement. Yeah, I'll use the board this there. That's much better. We desire, and all Canadian patriots desire, that the great trade of prairies shall go to enrich our people from the east.
Was that right before you went?
Yeah, it was. But you can see it in here. So 1 dot is not enough, and 2 dots is.
As soon as you walked away, then it's cleared
Now,
up.
why do we care?
So it was probably picking up what he was saying. Because that's where you would shut him off. Because they pick up.
It's because Sir Clifford Simpson was one of the main authors of the Alberta Act.
Too far away.
So in 1905,
Maybe we should go back to the other one.
the Alberta Act.
There's one on there. See?
Yeah, you'd pull it down in front.
It's the writer's mic. So there's on the mic. You see the little bit dot on there? There's another mic on there.
Yeah.
That's the one that's making the.
So we've been fighting ever since to get our rights, equal rights as a province. In 1913, the federal government brought in the Railroad Act Amendments. What this did is made it illegal for regional railways to cross regional lines. So I normally just said, well, use Provost tonight. So let's say you want to sell your grain to through another way. You would have to load up here on the train. Once you hit the Saskatchewan border, you'd have to load it onto a Saskatchewan carrier. When it hit the Manitoba border, have to do the same. When it hit the Ontario border, have to do exactly the same thing again. This made it very difficult for regional railways to compete. And by 1939, the vast majority of them, and the one that would have serviced here, Alberta Central Railway,
With the little thing.
were put out of business. The last one to finally lose its name, it was bought out well before that, but to lose its name was Alberta Northern Railways, and that was 1972 when they finally closed their doors as Alberta Northern Railway. But in 1943, a new company was formed, and that company bought up all the assets of all those regional railways, and they formed what we now know as CN Rail. Now, the funny thing about it was that under the Railroad Act amendments, the eastern provinces were exempt. It was only effective to the western provinces. In 1930, the Natural Resources Transfer Agreement was signed between the provinces. And what that did is it transferred all control back to the provinces over all their natural resources. However, at the time, the federal government made it very clear that Alberta and Saskatchewan, they didn't qualify. And they would have to follow different rules, and they would have their natural resources would still be under the governance of the federal government. Every other province got control back, but not Alberta and Saskatchewan. In 1931, on December 11th, the King signed into being the Statute of Westminster after the House of Lords in England passed it. It was then signed off by the King. And what that did is it gave sovereignty over land and resources to the provinces, or to the people in care of the provinces. So that means under the Statute of Westminster, there is no federal land in this province. That means that the national parks are actually provincial land. All of the land belongs to the provinces under the Statute of Westminster. And if we had been enforcing that, we would never have had Jasper happen, because we could have gone in there and we could have actually fought the fire. And we probably would have done a better job of managing it so the fire didn't happen in the first place. In 1935, the Canada Wheat Board was formed as a voluntary marketing board from coast to coast. And then in 1943, it became mandatory for all Western Canadian farmers. Now, what did the Wheat Board do? Well, yeah, okay, good one. That is true. So let's say that I wanted to sell my grain to the U.S. and I lived in Ontario. I would take it, I'd pull up to my grain bin, I'd load my truck, and I'd drive across the line and sell my grain. But if I lived west of the Manitoba border, I'd pull up to my grain bin, I would load my truck up, I'd pull into the local elevator, I'd offload my grain, pull around to the far side of the elevator, and buy it back from the Wheat Board at a profit to them before I could sell it to the U.S. So Western Canadian farmers were handicapped on what they could sell their grain to the States for and how they could sell it. Now, this stayed in effect until 2012, when it was finally repealed. But the reason that it was repealed was not because of any friendliness towards the West. It was because Western Canadian farmers had had enough. And we actually had 13 farmers that were willing to go to jail for it. And they were willing to spend between 6 months and a year in jail under some pretty harsh conditions. And the rest of the farmers were not willing to put up with it, and finally in 2012 it was repealed. In 1947 we had discovered oil before that, but we discovered vast reserves of oil finally in 47, and immediately the federal government decided to put federal control over oil pricing and pipelines into effect. And that stayed in effect until 1950. What that did is it said that we could not sell at world prices or any other set of prices. It was decided by the federal government what our oil could be sold for. And We couldn't put a pipeline in the ground unless we had federal permission to do so. How many in here are old enough to remember the great flag debate of 1965? About half the room. And that's good because a lot of rooms, there's only one or two people that remember that. So in 1965, then Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson decided that Canada needed its own flag that represented Canada from coast to coast. Well, he decided upon the sugar maple, and John Diefenbaker stood up in the House of Commons and said, why are you putting the sugar maple on it? Why aren't you making it the Manitoba maple, which is actually found from coast to coast? Well, Pearson did not like this, so he forced closure on the bill. And when it went to vote, not a single Western Canadian MP voted for the current flag. And there was so much hostility on the Western provinces that in 1967, just 2 years later, on Canada's centennial, many towns and cities in Western Canada refused to fly the maple leaf. Instead, they flew the other official flag of Canada, the red ensign. And by the time I started school in the early 1970s, never heard boo about it. I didn't know about anything about the Great Flag Debate until years later when I was studying the history, and then I could find quotes and the like to do with it. But within a matter of 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 years, it had been totally memory hold. And everybody was, I pledge allegiance to the flag, the emblem of my country. To her, I pledge my love and loyalty. But it was never Western Canada's flag. The sugar maple is not found west of, well, basically west of Thunder Bay. And thus, why is it a symbol? The red is to symbolize the oceans, and the maple leaf in the center is to symbolize the people. Well, by that thing, they're only concerned about the eastern people. 1973, the federal government brought in the oil export taxation policies, and Alberta's oil profits were capped. Now, how many people here remember us being told in the 70s that we were in an energy shortage? Yeah, exactly. Well, we weren't in an energy shortage. We were in a policy shortage, because they had put it, if you were an oil company and you were allowed to produce 100,000 barrels of oil a day, and if you went to 101,000, that extra barrel's profits went straight to Ottawa. Would you want to produce oil? No. So it was totally over policy. It had nothing to do with actual having an energy shortage. And this stayed in effect for 18 months until 1974, when our premier, Peter Lougheed, fought against it and finally got it repealed. But they weren't done with us yet, because just 6 years later, they brought in the National Energy Program. Now, the National Energy Program was everything from the 73-74 plus. And the plus was that we had to make a priority to sell to Eastern Canada, and they set the price that we sold it to them at. So we had no control over it. Even as late as the 70s, we've been fighting with them. Now, this stayed in effect until 1988. And Brian Mulroney, the then Prime Minister, finally repealed it. Now, on the surface, the main reason that they repealed it was because oil prices had dropped so low that it cost more to administer the program than they were getting out of it. But there was another added thing. It was also, he wanted to win the election. And he used the fact that we're going to be nice to the West, to Alberta in particular, and we're going to repeal this. And that caused his numbers to soar in the West. But he did not repeal it just specifically for that. It was because it cost so much money to administer. So finally in 1988, it came off. And in the 80s and 90s, we had some significant things happen. First off, in 1982, the Constitution was brought home to Canada. It was repatriated. This wasn't actually a good thing because we lost a lot of the rights and freedoms that we actually had under the common law of the Crown that we lost when it was brought home. But next thing to happen is Quebec had their first referendum in the 80s. And that didn't pass. Then they had another one in 1995, and they got 49.5%. And there was you should listen to Mr. Ben Trudeau talk about it. They lost by like 45,000 votes, and there were 50,000 declared unreadable ballots. So it's iffy if they actually lost. But the one thing that came out of it for us was that after that second referendum, the federal government went to the Supreme Court and said, can a province actually secede from Confederation? The Supreme Court came back and said yes, but they must follow a set of rules. And that set of rules then went back to the House, and they built the Clarity Act out of it. And the Clarity Act is the law that states that we can do it, but we have to follow steps. And that is what we have been trying. They're still throwing roadblocks in our way, but it's because of the second Quebec referendum that we have the Clarity Act to follow. So we'll jump forward to 2012. And Bill C-38, which is the Jobs, Growth, and Prosperity Act, which gave Ottawa complete control over all of Alberta's projects. That meant that we couldn't put a pipeline in the ground. We couldn't build a high-rise. We couldn't build a highway without federal approval. In 2016, they brought in federal carbon pricing. And we all know how that hit our oil industry. In 2019, they brought in Bill C-48, Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines, and Bill C-48, the tanker ban. Correct. You can load everything out of the East Coast, but nothing out of the West Coast. Now, last fall, Premier Daniel Smith wrote an MOU with Mark Carney, our Prime Minister, that would have got rid of all four of these. And within a week, the House of Commons met and voted it down. And that goes for the Conservatives from the province of Alberta voted against the MOU. So it doesn't matter which party is in Ottawa. They are looking for Eastern votes. They're not looking for Western votes. Now that brings us to modern time. Okay, so in the House right now, you've got two bills and one that was just defeated, thankfully. So you got Bill C-8 and Bill C-22 that are passing through. Bill C-28 or Bill C-8 is the anti-internet hate speech law, and it's colloquially known as the Internet Censorship Law. And what it does is it gives the minister the right that with a stroke of his pen, he can take you off of the internet entirely. And that doesn't just mean getting rid of your ISP. That means online banking, all that stuff gone. You will have no identity on the internet, and you have no recourse. None whatsoever. They're under that, and that one is on first reading right now. Bill C-22. That one is really scary because that one is the anti-encryption law. So now you know how many people in here use Signal. A couple. How many people use WhatsApp? Okay, a few more. How many people use Telegram? Few again. Those all have encryption on it that makes it so that you can send a message to you can send a message to you and it can't be read by anybody. The federal government is making that illegal under Bill C-22. That will make it so that you cannot hold a private conversation. They do not need, if they want to tap my phone, they have to get a warrant to tap my phone. But under Bill C-22, they can tap my internet account without any warrant, anything. They have the right under that bill to access everything that my whole online personality without any reason to do so. So that should have everybody scared. We can breathe slightly, because Bill C-9 last week was finally temporarily defeated in the Senate. The reason it was defeated wasn't over all of the other anti-hate speech. It was over one particular one, and so expect it to be rewritten in the House and go back right back to the Senate almost immediately. And the reason that they defeated it was over the fact that it made it illegal to deny the native, well, they call it the native slaughter. So if you don't believe that there were tons of native children killed at the schools, you under that bill you would have gone to jail for just saying it. And the Senate, that was the line too far for the Senate, and they defeated it. It's gone back to the House, but it should be scary that the fact that it passed the House in the first place, and that included that one, but it also included, if you quoted scripture to somebody, you could go to jail. If you, speaking at the front here, if somebody took offense to me speaking up here, I could have gone to jail. So it is temporarily defeated. But like I said, expect it to be rewritten and come right back, because they're very determined to get this law through. And we can thank the senators that at least that was one line too far for them. But hopefully they will get a little bit of a backbone and defeat it, because we can tell right now that the House isn't. The scary thing is Bill C-9 was voted on by over half of the Conservatives as well. There were only a few Conservatives that stood up and voted to not have it go forward. So it should scare everybody that even was suggested in our House of Commons. Now that I have made you totally paranoid, I'm going to invite our next speaker up. I thank you very much for listening to my history, and hopefully he'll have a few more chipper things to say than I did. So I would like to invite, with no introduction necessary, I'll invite Mr. Christopher Scott up here. What's that? Oh, okay. Well, thank you. We'll use it for the question and answer.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming tonight. Shane and Patty mentioned that the crowds are getting smaller, and that's true. I have noticed that the momentum that we saw, the momentum that we've seen, which started after the last federal election, has slowed down a little bit. Has anybody else noticed that? Yeah. There's a reason for that. And the reason is, well, one of the reasons is that people are absolutely exhausted. People have been working really hard, sharing their opinions, talking to their neighbors, going out and standing on street corners, collecting signatures in the freezing cold. People have been spit on and burned with cigarettes and all sorts of crazy things. It's been absolutely exhausting. I don't know if people realize the logistical nightmare of getting even, 10,000 signatures, let alone 301,680. That's a big feat, and that's a lot of work. And unfortunately, if you were in Edmonton when those signatures were delivered to Elections Alberta, it was exciting, very exciting. Like, this was the culmination of the efforts of thousands of people across Alberta who wanted to have a conversation about a specific thing, that wanted the government to ask Albertans a question. And so there's this excitement in the air, this feeling of, of success, of a milestone, and then a few days later, our government just deflated it. And they did it, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but they basically told all of those people, all of that work you did was for nothing. We're not going to ask your question. Instead, we're going to do this other thing. And I get there's legal things going on. There's courts getting in the way. There's, First Nations chiefs are filing injunctions, those types of things. But regardless of the whys, the outcome was that thousands of people were absolutely devastated, hurt even. So much so that now many of those people are mobilizing to act against the government. And when I say against the government, I mean in like the democratic process by participating, right? I don't know. I can't tell you if that's the correct path, or even if I'm 100% on board with that path. I'm just telling you this to help you understand that things have changed a little bit in the conversation, because people are not feeling like they're being heard at all. So that kind of was a kick in the shins, I guess, for a lot of people. So now we're at this place where we still have a goal, and in my opinion, I believe that Alberta should be asked the question of its sovereignty. Ask the question, do you want to be independent? That's my personal opinion. Let's Talk Alberta, as an organization, doesn't take that position. We're not telling you how you should vote, or who you should vote for, or how you should vote on referendum questions. Our speakers have opinions, and they'll tell you we're very opinionated. But I think the most important thing to do right now is just exactly what our name is. Let's start talking. Let's start talking about these things. First Nations people specifically, because the reason why the question isn't on the ballot or on the referendum the way that the Stay Free Alberta folks wanted it to be is because First Nations chiefs won an injunction. The courts struck it down. And that really bothers me. It's not sitting well with me, because shortly thereafter we saw some poll numbers come out. And the poll numbers showed that there was a dip in overall support for Alberta sovereignty because of maybe some of the things I mentioned. But it also showed something really interesting. It showed that First Nations people have a higher support for doing something different, for going against the status quo, for being asked this question. And it's the First Nations leaders who are getting in the way now. This is a conversation that needs to be had. I've noticed a lot of people are upset with First Nations people, which doesn't make sense, because this wasn't, our friends and neighbors who did this. This was people who benefit greatly from the status quo that are fighting to protect what they have, right? It's not the 46% of First Nations people that want something different. And why wouldn't they want something different? They haven't been treated well under the status quo. So it's an interesting time, and I think that the conversations are of the utmost importance right now. So when we go to an event in a town, and we're all over Alberta, by the way. Like Sheane, he jokes that we should call this the Let's See Alberta tour instead of the Let's Talk Alberta, because we're seeing places that neither of us have seen before. And if anyone's seen everything, it's Sheane, and he'll tell you. So the conversations are becoming absolutely critical. The political stuff, that's great. Participate in it. But if we don't start talking about the things that are important to us, and if we don't figure out how we can talk to people who are, have different opinions than us, we're going to go into this very critical time in October with some very consequential questions, and we're going to fail because we're going to be confused. If we let the people that are using this pursuit of sovereignty for their own purposes, whether it's political or financial or whatever, if we let them get in the way of what we're building here, of the conversation that we're starting to have and the conversation that's becoming mainstream, we're going to miss an opportunity of a lifetime. I have been speaking about this opportunity more and more and more lately. When people ask me about a specific policy, Chris, well, what are we going to do about the military? What are we going to do about currency? What are we going to do about trade? I remind them that I can't tell you exactly how things would go should Alberta choose to be sovereign, because I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know if people are going to continue to push forward for change that benefits the people. But I do know 100% that we have an opportunity to do those things for the first time in Alberta's history. Many of the policy questions that people ask me right now, including First Nation stuff, are things that we can't do anything about right now. How does it make you feel as a Western Canadian that if the federal government is doing something, let me just think of something so asinine that they would never do. Hold on a second. I'm having trouble because I think they'd do anything. Okay, here's one. Imagine you're a Western Canadian, you're an Albertan, and you're watching as the federal government starts spending and spending and spending and printing money like crazy. Imagine just in some alternate universe where reason and common sense no longer existed, the federal government doubles the money supply without doubling the economic capacity to support it, thereby devaluing our dollar by 30 to 50% in some estimations. That would never happen, by the way. It happened already. What are we going to do about it? What can we do about that? Monetary policy. What are we going to do about our currency? As an Albertan, as a British Columbian, as a Saskatchewanite? Nothing. And it's partly because of what Sheane mentioned. We desire, and every patriotic Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairies go to build up our factories and work and places of work in the East and contribute in every way to its prosperity. There was never a mention of our prosperity. There was never a mention of us having a seat at the table or being able to influence the outcome of some of these policies. Now imagine in some crazy alternative universe that we lived in a country where we had the chance, the legal and lawful pathway by which we could do those things. We could grab that opportunity and take it. Imagine that. Sounds too good to be true, right? That's where we're at. This is exactly where we're at. We are on the cusp of something so great and so amazing. People all over the world have fought, they have died, they have struggled, they've toiled to get where we're going. And all we had to do is just speak up and start having the conversation. Start talking to each other about these things. How many people in this room have approached somebody and tried to share their opinion on where they believe the future of Alberta should be, and they're scoffed at or demeaned or moistly talked to? Do people moist talk still? I feel really, I don't know if it's pity or compassion. I feel some sort of sympathy for the people that have these emotional outbursts when you talk about the future of Alberta and the opportunity that we have to make some decisions that could change our lives for generations to come. I feel very sympathetic to them. Because in my life, I've been in places before where someone would try and talk to me about something, and I would have an emotional response. I would fail to think critically, and then I would make a bad decision. Have you ever been there? The people that, when you try and have the conversation, when you say, hey, we have a differing opinion, let's talk about this. The people that blow up at you and start the patriotic nonsense that gets in the way of critical thinking, they're missing something. Like, I want everybody to see the opportunity that I see. And this is why I don't talk very much anymore about specific policy outcomes or how much tax we're going to pay or any of those things. Because at the end of the day, there is no guarantee. And actually, it could be worse if people do what people generally do and we go march towards this thing, we get to the goal, and then we're like, yay, we're going to go and do something else now, and we let the other people who are opposed to us take control again. It could be worse. But it certainly could be a lot better. And right now, where we're at in Western Canada, I'm sure that everyone in this room has felt it. There's not a heck of a lot we can do to change the path we're on as a nation. And that's a little upsetting to me because I was a very patriotic Canadian. I have the flag tattooed on my back. Kids, wait till you're older to get tattoos. And it actually bothers me that I have to share my opinion of, that I believe Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. It actually saddens me to say that because I grew up, I didn't grow up. I was raised, I aged, and, I started school, elementary school, I guess. I was born in 79, so when you start, 5 years old, 6 years old, so about 1985, something like that. And I still remember the way that my teachers and adults back then talked about Canada. We were 3 years after the Constitution being repatriated, which I'm gonna talk about this in a minute, isn't as great as I thought it was back then. It was exciting because we believed we have this Constitution and this Charter of Rights and Freedoms of all these rights that the government gives us. And so we're going to be free, and we always will be, and this is the greatest country ever. And it was. It really was. I felt that all through the time when I aged, all through the time when I grew up. I felt that. I felt that Canada was just so amazing, and I was so blessed to live here. And you know what? I still believe that. I do believe I'm blessed to live here. But the Canada that I knew back then does not exist anymore. I read something on social media about somebody talking about their children. And it kind of gave me the same feeling as I have about old Canada. There are some people who, they love their kids and they raise them, and then something happens and their kids, they go the wrong path and they just don't have their kid anymore. Some people in this room may have experienced that. Somebody or something you love, something you knew, is no longer the same to the point where it's gone to you. I heard someone say to me a few weeks ago, talking about one of their relatives, like, that person is dead to me because of the path they took, and they're not coming back. That's the feeling I have about Canada. The Canada that I knew when I was a youngster. The Canada that I believed was a bastion of freedom and always would be. A place where people leave their lives, they sell everything they have, and they work and they work and they struggle so they can come here with nothing and struggle some more because there's the opportunity. Here's that word again, opportunity. The things people sacrifice for opportunities are all around us, and that's what old Canada was. Now I believe that's what Alberta could be. I really do. I never once in my life until 2021 believed that those things that made Canada what I knew it was could disappear. I never believed that I would see pastors arrested for holding church services. I never believed that I would have to attend church services illegally, under cover of darkness, or meet for political purposes to shape the future of the place in which I lived, under the cover of darkness. I never believed that the government would tell you or anyone that they could only participate in society if they took a medical intervention of their choosing. These are things that were completely out of my scope of understanding, or my sense of reality. And yet here we are, and many of us can say these things. So those people that are blinded by the emotional connection to what was, they're not our enemies. These are not our opponents. The patriotic Canadians that allow their patriotism to blind them to the reality of what Canada has become and where it's going. Sheane just mentioned a bill that actually was, I think it was passed in the House, went to the Senate, that would allow you to be fined or jailed for telling the truth. Can you believe that? There are people in government in Ottawa who want to jail you for denying that there are 215 denying that there are 215 bodies buried at Kamloops Residential School. That was a hoax. The truth is, there are very likely 0 bodies there. They have never uncovered anything. Even the people that did the work admit that they can't tell you what that is, the 215 anomalies. And yet, this country went down a path of sacrificing its sovereignty and shaming its citizens, and then trying to pass legislation that would jail you for challenging the narrative that destroyed the country. That incident is where we started our decline into the post-nation state that Trudeau referenced. He stood on the world stage and he said that Canada is a shameful country and we were genocidal and we should all be ashamed for being who we are. And even worse, people took that narrative and they started saying things like, if you disagree with that or you challenge that, you should be in jail. Kind of reminds me of when I heard him say, if you don't take this medical intervention, you can't sit on a train or a plane or a bus with good people. What has Canada become? And what are you going to do about it? And you on the keyboard there saying that I'm whining about a pipeline. Open your friggin' ears and your eyes and tell me, what are you going to do about these things? What are you going to do when your child is going to jail for telling the truth? That is not a free nation. That's not a free country. That's not a democracy. Actually, it is, because in a democracy, if the majority believe that you should go to jail for telling the truth, then they're going to pass a law, and that's you will go to jail for telling the truth. So I always come back to this opportunity. Since 1993, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 38 new nations have formed. 38 regions or provinces or states or whatever have come to some agreement with their parent nation, and they have become sovereign. 38 since 1993. Why is that? Why are we not nations getting bigger? Why are we not becoming a one world government in the new world order where we can all live under the same rules? Because our values aren't the same. That's why nations generally get smaller, they don't get bigger. because we want to peacefully coexist, correct? We do. I want to peacefully coexist with my neighbors. I don't want to have friction in the form of legislation that compels me to do something I don't want to do, or the rest of the people in my region. We can agree that our laws can be different. We can agree that each group should chart our own course forward. We can agree that trade is important and mutually beneficial and do that and not have the same laws. Maybe the people in Eastern Canada will be happy under legislation that prevents them from speaking against something. Maybe they'll be happy if, them and their neighbors can have their internet services turned off because they did something offensive. Maybe the people of Ottawa and the people of Manitoba, by the way, will be perfectly happy when the RCMP come to their door and write them a citation or arrest them for saying something offensive. That would never happen in democracy, would it? That would never happen in the civilized Western world today. 14,000 people have been arrested in the UK for offending people online. And this is where the other group of people want to go. But the people here in Alberta that respond to our desire for self-determination with an emotional outburst based on patriotic attachment to what they believe Canada is, what Canada was, those people are not our enemies, and that's why we need to talk to them. Every person that has that response is our ally. We just haven't done the work yet. All those forever Canadian people that are in Edmonton, and they're waving their flags and singing "O Canada" and bowing to Thomas Lukasik and eating pierogies apparently now, because I guess they're talking about pierogies. They're not our enemies. Those are our allies. They just haven't seen what we've seen yet. They haven't heard what we've heard. And I'll tell you something interesting. You might not know this, but I have zero desire to be up here speaking to crowds of people. None. I do not want to do this. But I've seen things and I've heard things that I cannot unsee and I cannot unhear, and now I need to do something about it. That's why these conversations are important. Somebody had this conversation with me a few years ago, and it cultivated some feeling seeds that I had in me, and it changed me. So when I see rooms that are not 300 people, but it's not 5 people either, I see a whole bunch of people that want to make a difference, people that want to have conversations, people that want to approach their neighbors and say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about that Forever Canadian sign on your lawn. Ask me why I have a Choose Alberta sign on my lawn. And then make them your allies. This type of movement isn't won by politicians, although I'm starting to feel that we need a political vehicle to help now for sure. These types of movements are won with conversations in coffee shops and town halls and, yes, at church. People sharing their opinions, talking to the people that have differing opinions like they're human beings. That's how it happens. The politicians will do what they do. They will see which way the wind is going, look and see where the parade is, get in front of it, and hopefully not have to do anything for 4 years and get paid. That's what they'll do. Our job is to be the change that we want to see. I'm sure you've heard that before. Our job is to have the conversations everywhere we go. Because if there's, I'm going to say 40, 35 people in this room, that's 35 disciples for the conversation around Alberta's future. There's 35 people that can go out into Provost and area, and a little farther south I see back there with the red hat, and have these conversations. It's not going to be me or Sheane or any of the other speakers standing up here that turn the tide and put us in the direction we want to go. It's you folks. This is on every one of you and you folks watching as well. So my encouragement to you today, Focus on the opportunity we have. Understand the sacrifices that other people have made to get the opportunity that we're going to be handed on a silver platter. We don't have to fight a war. We don't have to smuggle pamphlets and create a solidarity movement and risk being shot by communists because we're talking. We get to talk to our neighbors, change hearts and minds, and pursue an opportunity of a lifetime. That's it. And whatever happens, I think it's important that we remember not to listen to those people that say it's impolite to talk about that. It's impolite to talk about politics. It's impolite to talk about religion. We need to start being a lot more bold with our conversations. Politics affects our lives from before we're born to after we're dead. Religion affects everything else. They are both very important. So please, let's talk Alberta. That's all I got. I have one more thing. Are we going to take, do you want to take a break? We're going to take a break. I notice there's sweets back there that are calling my name. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, grab a coffee, water, shake some hands, whatever you want to do, and then we're going to come back for a Q&A. We'll stay as long as it takes. We'll answer questions online as well. So please prepare your questions. And, Shane, there's the buckets. The buckets, yes, of course. We're passing the buckets because these things cost money, unfortunately, and we have to pay for venues and things like that. So if you feel so inclined, please put something in the bucket. And if you don't feel inclined, you certainly don't have to, but we appreciate it. See you in 10 minutes.
You heard me talking about the 13? There's one of the members of the 13 right there.
Stop Cafe's webpage, our Facebook page, to Let's Talk Alberta's Facebook page or website, or to freedomcalendar.net. Find the calendars for our upcoming events and please share them out to anybody that you know in the area that they're occurring. And ask them to share them with people. The algorithms are really killing us. There's lots of people that are saying that they're not getting the posters when we put them up till 4 or 5 days after an event has occurred. So we need to do what I call the shampoo method. Now, as you can tell, I know lots about shampoo, but I do remember the commercials from the 1970s and 80s for Clairol shampoo. You tell 2 friends, and they'll tell 2 friends, and so on and so on. And that's what we need to do to get the posters out to everybody. So if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. So we've got a gentleman running around with a microphone. If you have a question, just feel free to throw up your hand and he will come to you and you can ask your question.
I drank too much coffee. Before we get started, there's something very important that we need to talk about. I've realized over the last few years that I have a bit of an issue, and those sweets at the back aren't helping. But I want to say thank you to everyone who brought that stuff. It's delicious. I've had almost one of everything.
I'm going to mention one other thing. There is a bucket of Alberta flags at the back. So when we're done, make sure you grab yourself one. And, oh, we've got one already out in the, yeah. And if you want to grab one for somebody you know, make sure you grab it. Well, don't everybody ask at once. There we go.
Yeah, I just have a burning question about David Parker and the Centurion project. I don't like the fact that we're all getting painted with the same brushes as to that we're very corrupt and we've done something wrong and they don't want anything to do with our group anymore because of him. Any comment on that?
Well, my first question would be, who is they, for starters? And my second question would be, if people are going to lump me in with David Parker, which I didn't have anything to do with the Centurion project or any of that, and honestly, we don't even know what happened yet, so there is that. So they're making allegations without having all of the facts. Why are we not lumping them in with people, liberal people who do bad things, like maybe pedophiles? Like, are they in that group and they're all like that because somebody in that group did something? That's not how it works, right? Whatever happened with the Centurion project, I don't know if it was intentional or if it was unintentional or if there's anything that was actually wrong happened. None of that information has come out yet. It's actually completely irrelevant to me. All I see is a group that tried to do something to advance a political agenda of some sort, and it didn't go well. Other than that, I have it's completely irrelevant to me and nothing to do with me, Let's Talk Alberta, or anyone here. And even there's a lot of people who wanted to participate because we've been taught it's been pounded in our heads for 6 years. Get involved, do the things. Democracy is every day. So when people see an opportunity to do something, to participate, they're jumping at it because people want to do the work, right? And there's people, friends of mine, for instance, that are now ending up in court because of this issue, and they had nothing to do with it. So I think people just need to grow up and focus on what's real instead of using assumptions and allegations to try and discredit good people from doing good work. Yes.
Okay, they'll be back in the yellow. There's batteries for it. In the yellow.
They're dead?
They're dead.
It's red.
That should still work.
Okay, we'll try.
I'm going to touch on that a little bit. I'm going to touch on the Centurion project a little bit because I was never involved with the Centurion project, but I'm very close to somebody that was, and that'd be my wife. She was involved, but you know what? She never saw any of the lists or any of that they talked about, and right now I can honestly say that the media is using it as a way to browbeat everybody.
One more thing before. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you know that you can actually buy contact information? You can do that. That's one thing that I'm looking at, is buying contact lists so that we can reach people in an entire area. It's not uncommon, and I'm not saying that that's a reason why the rules around these things should be ignored or anything like that. But what the media is saying happened is not accurate, and I think people just need to relax and wait for the facts.
Yes, good evening. I'm a little confused about the referendum that's coming up in the fall.
Aren't we all?
Yes, stay in Canada or ask for a referendum. Now, I'm thinking there's probably going to be a box beside each of those, right? Now, supposing I put an X beside not stay in Canada, meaning I don't want it, and a check mark beside ask for the referendum. Now, because in a voting situation, if you make any mark in a box, it's counted as a vote. So then now I put an X and a check, my vote gets canceled out.
Good question, and I can see how it's confusing, except in situations like this, don't listen to what people like me are telling you. I'll give you my opinion on what I think it will look like. When you get there, and when you have the ballot in front of you, there will be instructions, clear instructions. If you don't understand the instructions, anytime you're voting on anything, you can ask somebody to explain it to you there, and they'll go through it. I'm assuming that you would only make a mark in the box for the choice that you want to make, right? So leave the one blank and make a mark in the box that you want. However, if it's still confusing when you get there, ask one of the people that are attending to the polling station, and they can explain the method to you.
Well, you and I understand that, but do the majority of other people understand?
I think so. I think the majority, the question was, will the majority understand that? I think so. Because the intention is that the question is asked and people are able to answer it, so they will put clear instructions on it. Elections Alberta will do the best they can to try and be clear to everybody, but it is possible that there will be some people who don't understand, but these are also the people that don't understand traffic circles, and then we're frustrated with them, right?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
I can answer that one.
Okay.
I understand traffic circles. I just hate them.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment about the working elections. Normally, what we suggest to people is that you mark the ones you want, period, right? So there shouldn't be X's and check marks.
People might say, I don't want to stay in Canada. X.
If people are listening to the training there, we should be okay?
Hold it close.
I have a question about, is it just the way the media is playing it up, or is there any truth to the situation that if Alberta does separate, that we are going to have a passport to go to Saskatchewan, which is only 12 miles down the road? They're presenting a lot of negatives about the separation, and that's one of them.
Thanks to $10 million in Omar Khadr, we actually have a clear answer to that from the Supreme Court of Canada. Supreme Court of Canada has said that there is nothing short of lying on your application to become a citizen. So if you were born here, you have nothing that can take away your Canadian citizenship. There is nothing that can take away, and the media is lying when they say that there is. The Supreme Court of Canada has already answered that clearly and concisely in Omar's case, because when they stripped him of his citizenship after he colluded with the Taliban, and the Supreme Court of Canada said, no, you cannot do that. So if they can't strip it for colluding with the Taliban, they can't strip it for you deciding that you want an independent Alberta.
I'll add a little bit to that. How would it come to pass that Alberta becomes independent? What has to happen? A referendum, right? When you vote in a referendum, do you put your name on the ballot?
Nope.
Do you have somebody over your shoulder looking at what your choice is?
Nope.
So how would anybody know which choice any particular Alberta made regarding Alberta sovereignty? If anyone's going to talk about trying to strip citizenship from people that wanted to have an independent Alberta, they can't, because they don't know who asked for it. All they know is that there's a majority. So the whole idea is completely preposterous. The other point is, even our last second greatest Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, second worst Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, he said, and I quote, "A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian." Just because you're choosing whether or not Alberta self-determines does not change your citizenship. You are a Canadian, and you have all of the rights as a Canadian. There's this notion that, well, these things could be negotiated, and my answer is, in what world and by who? It's completely ridiculous and wouldn't happen.
I don't know that much about them. I know Keith Wilson started it.
Oh, okay. So someone has requested that I talk a little bit about what the Transition Council is, that Keith Wilson is spearheading. Is that, someone want to hear about that? Okay, so my friend Keith Wilson, he's a lawyer, a very good one at that, very well spoken. He is become quite the authority on Alberta sovereignty, Alberta independence, how it would look, those types of things. I highly recommend that you follow his social media because the guy's a wealth of information. What he's done is he started an initiative with this idea. So if Alberta decides to self-determine, there are a number of things that we have to do. We have to take control of certain things. For instance, what's tax collection, military, policing, these things. There's a process by which you have to do that. There's things you have to do. Quebec has been working on this for 60 years. Quebec has an entire library, an entire ministry devoted to all of the things that Quebec would have to take control of when they become sovereign. They will become sovereign nation. Keith is doing that for Alberta. Keith and his group, the Alberta Transition Council. So basically it's a stack of papers that you can hand to a transitional administrative government post-referendum or post-declaration. You hand it to them and you say, these are the things you need to do, get to work, so that they don't have to spend their time trying to figure out how, okay, well, how are we going to do our tax collection? It's already in the manual. So it's a really, really cool initiative. Yeah, it would be everything. Everything that Alberta currently does not manage on their own, that the federal government manages for us, would be included in the transitional documents. Yeah. Yeah, and if you listen, Patty said there's 50 people on this council. If you listen to Keith describe the caliber of the people that are working on this for the benefit of Alberta and Albertans, it is absolutely awesome and invaluable, the brain power behind it.
I'm hearing a lot about APP done or something. I'm confused on what happened, where we're going, and how do we keep the momentum that we've had to this point. I think that a lot of people in this room have supported it. It doesn't matter if it was Let's Stay Free Alberta or APP or Let's Talk Alberta. We want to be the voice, but I'm feeling separated, and I just want some clarity on what's actually happening, if I can.
Okay, so the question is, basically the question is what's going on with APP? I've been public about this on other media, so I'm not scared to share it right now. There's some things that those notions were cast off. And when we pushed and said, no, we need to do this, we need to do the work, thousands, tens of thousands of volunteer hours, $600,000 raised, we need a plan to get to work. When we pushed it, some people did some things and pushed us out. That's what happened. And there's no point in worrying about that. There is no point in fighting over it. It's just we have a goal, and we both want the same goal, so we're just going there, right? That's why we started doing something different, because I didn't, and the team here, they didn't want to have this vacuum where nothing was happening during very critical time. So you'd notice that Let's Talk Alberta started doing events in February. We started in February. We ran all the way through the Stay Free campaign within the rules, while being told that we weren't allowed to do anything by some of the people that pushed us out. And we said, no, that's not accurate. These are the rules. We can do the educational part that needs to be done, and you guys do your petition, no problem. So we just carried right on through. And, in hindsight, I'm really glad that we did this, because there was a period from May, what was the petition ending date? May 4th? May 6th, whatever? May 6th until June, where nothing happened. And it's been very frustrating for me, because that's a lot of time, effort, and money that people have put in to make sure we're going. Let's Talk Alberta. We're paycheck to paycheck. Like yesterday, Laura, did you send that e-transfer today? Because I forgot.
No.
We exist paycheck to paycheck. We have advertising we're doing with some media groups, and I literally have to loan Let's Talk Alberta money so that we can pay the bill and do it, and then hopefully we get it back in an event. But this is an absolutely critical time, right? This is not a time to be sitting on our hands and working on a plan. We need to be ahead of these things. We need to have, like these trifolds we do, when there's talking points that come out from even Premier Smith saying, hey, I heard it's going to cost $400 billion for Alberta to be independent. Okay, we need to talk about this. Let's talk about this, Alberta. Let's talk about both sides of this ledger, right? So we do that. I sit in an office that I rent in Mirror for Let's Talk Alberta with a printer that Let's Talk Alberta bought, and I print off a bunch of trifolds. I hand them to Jessica, who assumes that she has to fold them, and she folds them when we bring them to events, right?
Or he brings them unfolded.
Or I bring them unfolded. So my point is, this is a critical time, and I don't want anyone to spend even a second worrying about who's fighting who or who's done what. I want everybody just to look at, this is where we're going. This is where we're going. We're going to work on that, and other groups around us, they can do their thing, hopefully. But at the end of the day, we have to decide what steps we are going to take as individuals, and not worrying about what broader groups are doing.
I got to add one thing to that. So just to clarify on the paycheck to paycheck, that is the group, because none of us take a paycheck. Yeah. We get fuel costs, but that's it.
Yeah, good point.
Gonna grab it.
And on that note, I will respond to this. So there was allegations made that the only reason that we started Let's Talk Alberta was because we're broke. Well, I've been broke for a long time. I've been wealthy at times, and I don't really care. If I wanted to be wealthy again, I would go back to my last job and I would manage a couple dozen of oil field consultants and a big project and make lots of money. There was an allegation made that I'm only doing this because I'm broke and I want to use the movement so that I can fund my own bank account. That is complete and utter bullshit. Complete. And anybody that knows me knows this, but I want to make sure that I put that on the record. We don't take money. We make sure that all of the speakers don't have to travel out of pocket. If we need hotel rooms, we get them hotel rooms, but that's the extent of it. And a lot of the times, our speakers won't even take money for expenses. You know, some have to because we're not wealthy people, but some don't. So this isn't an individual paycheck to paycheck. I mean an organizational paycheck to paycheck, where I say to Shane, book all these ads and do all these things. And he says, there's 87 cents in the bank. How are we going to do that? And I'm like, I don't care. Just do it. And then we have an event and raise some money. But that's the long and short of it.
And adding on to that, if he was grifting and filling his pockets, it has to go through me. So that would be accusing me as well, because I see everything that goes in and out of that bank account. So it's not happening.
And on that note, please buy a T-shirt, because that's the only way we can afford to do this.
And I just wanted to add to your question and everything is that so I help I'm in the background, and I'm the one who books all the venues, and I do a lot of the admin work behind the scenes. And what happens is that when I'm communicating with people that are out all across Alberta, is that it doesn't matter if they were with APP, the Stay Free and stuff, we're still union. We are still together, and it doesn't matter if there was a little, like that bump in the road and, that all that stuff is happening over here. It has not created a divide on the people with the boots on the ground. We are still focused on our end game, which is, to make sure that people have the information so that they can make the correct, the decision that they want to make and what is the best for the future of our children and our grandchildren. But we're all still together. So whatever happens behind the scenes, over there, no. People on the ground, you and me, we're still here. There is no division. We're still together.
Can you explain what a TPA is?
A third-party advertiser. Oh, you want more? Okay. So, according to the Elections Finance Act, any campaigning that's done during a writ period, which means that there's been an order in council for something like an election or a referendum question or something like that, any advertising for outcome of those, for a candidate or for referendum outcome, something like that, has to be done through with transparency as a third-party advertiser registered with Elections Alberta. So a third-party advertiser, they can only collect maximum of $50 cash donations. Anything over that, they have to record your name and submit that information to Elections Alberta. They have to submit all of the income to Elections Alberta, but donations over 50, they actually apply to your election contribution limit, which I believe in this case is $5,000. Is that correct? So you can only contribute $5,000 maximum to any combination or any third-party advertiser, period. Now, Let's Talk Alberta is not a third-party advertiser. I am not going to seek third-party advertiser status, and there's a very specific reason for that. Number one, I don't want to have to report everybody's donation to Elections Alberta. Number two, we're not advocating for an outcome. We have opinions, but Let's Talk Alberta operates in a specific carve-out in the Elections Finance Act that states that town halls, personal opinions, and those types of things are charter-protected activities that do not fall under the elections advertising. That's why we're encouraging people to talk about these things. We invite people who oppose us to these events because we want to talk about them as well, or talk about them. We want to talk to them as well.
Did you hear about no.
Sheane has been putting out invitations to, Federalists and people in the Forever Canadian group who oppose us to come and speak at our meetings because it's about talking about these things. I would love for Thomas Lukaszuk to join us at a meeting, sit with me, enjoy some pierogies, because he described that he eats pierogies the same way he deals with separatists, which is stabbing it with a fork, devouring it, and leaving no trace or something like that. I'd like to enjoy a meal with him and then publicly debate him about these things. I want to talk to him. I want to talk about things important to Alberta with Thomas Lukaszuk. That's why Let's Talk Alberta is different and why we're not pursuing a third-party advertiser. We simply advertise to bring people into the town hall to talk about things that are important to Albertans, not advertising for a specific referendum outcome.
And we have a Federalist.
Alrighty.
And we have a Federalist that actually joins us and speaks from that perspective as well.
There's an online question by Wildflower. How do we donate online? How do we donate to Let's Talk Alberta?
So if you go to letstalkalberta.com, there's a button there. You click donate. You can do it online. You can send an e-transfer to letstalkalberta@gmail.com. You can do it in person at an event. You can mail a check if that's your thing to Box 105, Mirror, Alberta. Please do not address the check to Take Back Alberta. That's not us. We actually received a check in Take Back Alberta's name a few days ago. It was a good gesture, but of course we can't cash that. So those are the ways that you can donate to Let's Talk Alberta. And no, you don't have to disclose your name or anything like that, and we don't have to tell the government about you. So you're the only list you're on is my list.
And mine.
And Shane's. Well, I was going to do that at the very end, but I'll do it right now. So, yeah, there's a lot of volunteers that make these things happen. You see 2 people up here. There's 20 people in the background working to make these things come together. So, yeah, thank you very much to all the volunteers in Provost and all of the towns we go to. Generally, we show up, and there's a group of people here. They're putting chairs out. They're getting the decorations done. They're bringing baked goods to help me with my issue of losing weight. And yeah, we couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much to all the volunteers. There was another online question that I saw earlier, and I'm going to answer it, even though it's probably going to lose me some friends.
Is that the one you showed me?
Yeah. The question was, will you mention to people how you can buy UCP memberships and get involved and do these things? I'm actually not advocating for that. I'm not. And this is my personal opinion. You don't have to share it, but I'll tell you why. Over the last 5 years, I've watched hundreds of thousands of people volunteering tens of thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands of hours, millions upon millions of dollars. And now I'm watching all that effort and those millions of dollars being used to campaign against what I know is the best path for Alberta. And I'm not okay with it. Every single time we have something that we're working on, the messaging has been the same, and it's always from the same people. Get involved, buy a membership, buy an AGM ticket, which I did, buy a table at a leader's dinner, and feed this machine that's using your resources against you. Now, I have lots of friends in the UCP. I think there's some very wonderful people.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sheane as well. Sheane and Bonnie, very active. They've actually got some policy resolutions passed. They've done tremendous work. But the problem I'm seeing right now is the entrenched federalist agenda seems to be relentless and infecting everything. I've watched good people, friends of mine, pushed to the outside for speaking the truth. I've watched people mobilize and, I don't know, the hijack's not the right word, but co-opt movements like this of people moving in a direction that we need to go, and then they just get them off track enough to funnel the resources into something else that works against them. And I'm not okay with it anymore. I spoke up years ago, just prior to and during the Get Rid of Kenny campaign, and I said, people need to start doing the right thing. They need to start voting their conscience. They need to stop being so damn scared of this group that they sacrifice their principles and don't support the people who actually will speak for them. And I've watched it. I've watched it over and over and over again. And I really haven't seen any progress. And it breaks my heart. It really, really does. It really does. But, you get to a point, and I've come to a point where I've had to admit to myself that if I continue pushing in this particular direction, I have to do so by setting aside what I believe in. And that's not me. I can't do that. So that's why I don't tell people they should buy a membership. I tell people now, you should be looking to buy a membership in something you believe in. Something that will actually stand for your values and pursue the goal that you want. If Danielle wants to pursue a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, she is free to do so. And I respect a ton of the things she's done, but I don't have to support that, right? So, I know that that's an unpopular opinion. I know I'm going against the movement status quo because the messaging out there is everybody just has to buy their membership and participate and do these things. And I can't be part of injecting another $5 or $6 million into an organization that's going to campaign against us and block our progress and kick us they didn't kick us in the shins, they kicked us in the balls. They really did. If an organization's going to do that and stop or just suck the wind out of a movement like this, I can't get behind it anymore. And it's very unfortunate.
Can I answer to that now? I hate you. No, just kidding.
I know.
I understand where Chris is coming from, but I actually would differ from him a little bit on that one. I have been involved, and I have seen major progress within. Stuff that would never have dreamed of years ago. And I would not encourage you to go buy your membership for the reasons that are being touted by a bunch of people out there. Now is not the time for what they're touting. It is not the time or the place. But if you're wanting to get involved, in order to see change, even within a party, you need to be involved. And since they are the governing body, it is a very good thing to become involved. So that's the way, where I would differ with Chris on that one, is you do need to be involved with the party that is in power. And I would say the same thing if it was the NDP in power. Because you need to be involved because you can help influence. I'm conservative leaning, but that never stopped me from getting an NDP membership before. It's not, you don't have to follow their philosophy to try and influence the way things work from the inside. If you don't, if you're a member of the party, you have a say all the time within the party. It may not seem like that from the outside, but if you're actually involved, you have a say all the time. And if you don't have a membership, it's $10. You have no say except once every 4 years. They may go around and do their town hall meetings and the like and try and hear from you. But as far as I can see, there wasn't much that came from them. I see a lot more of the influence that come from the AGM and the like. That's just my 2 cents. And see, we don't actually hate each other, even though I disagree with them.
And we're allowed to disagree, and I guarantee you we'll talk about it. That's what this is about. We don't have to think the same on everything. We just have to be willing to talk about it. Brad's moseying over. It's coming.
To the guy with the red hat. Sometimes known in the legislature as the dinosaur from Drumheller. Your conversation, gentlemen, is so crucial, in my view, to the movement going forward. And I'm not wanting to monopolize the microphone here, but Chris, you and I need to have a fireside chat about this. This is at great length and can be debated and talked about. So I would, and I've been meaning to come over there at some point in time, but you're hard to get a hold of and a busy guy. But ladies and gentlemen, few people understand how change occurs. And I was fortunate enough to be tutored by the gentleman that hired Jason Kenney in 93, 94 to be the taxpayer's advocate for the province of Alberta, and through that activism and some 60 to 80,000 members in the province, Jason Kenney, I'll say bullied, if you will, then Premier Ralph Klein into reducing the MLA wages and taking away their pensions. That was not done by the membership of the Conservative Party at that time. That was done by a third-party organization. And that's what I view the strength of organizations like, whether it be Let's Talk Alberta, the Alberta Prosperity Project, or any other influencer organization. There are YouTubers out there as well. And I think you gentlemen are on the right track here, is how I would just say this, doing this. It's a difficult situation. And Chris, you also talked about not having a global or a crystal ball. That too is very difficult, because I was one of the 13 farmers that fought and tried to achieve our own property rights. And through an alignment of the constellations with then Ag Minister Jerry Ritz and Prime Minister Stephen Harper, we were able to create a change in federal legislation. So I compliment you all on your activities here. You're on the right track. And for the listeners out there, please follow, and please be involved and educate your neighbors, educate the people at the coffee shops about the advantages going forward. This is a crucial time for our province. This is a crucial time for our country to go forward. So I'll leave it at that. My hat's off to you gentlemen with deep respect.
Thank you, Mr. Strankman. That means a lot coming from a dinosaur. I was talking to Rick earlier, and I mentioned that every once in a while I hear something and I learn something and something clicks. And something just clicked to me. So many of you may know, and some may not, that in the early 90s there was a group of young up-and-coming politicians who worked together on a lot of different things. Jason Kenney was one of them. Pierre Poilievre was another. Danielle Smith was another. They worked on the Stockwell Day campaign, mentored by Stephen Harper. All names that we've seen through politics in the since the early 90s, right? Jason Kenney lobbied the Alberta government to reduce MLA's wages and remove their pensions. Why would anybody do that? I think we should pay our MLAs more because I want the best people doing those jobs. I think they should have a pension because I don't want them to have to make deals during their tenure in legislature to try and get something going on off the books after, so they have something to rely on. I want the best people managing this hundreds of billions of dollars corporation that is Alberta. So why would he do that? Have you noticed that our provincial MLAs often, do you ever see the movie Toy Story? Do you remember that scene where they're in that little game that's got the little thing where the kids grab the toy and it comes out, puts it in the thing? Oh, the claw, it's chosen me, right? That's the federal government for MLAs. That's where our MLAs want to go. So why would they take away MLAs' pensions? The federal MPs get pensions. They get very high wages, much higher than MLAs. It is in our MLA's best interest to wait for that claw to come and pick them out of provincial politics and drop them into federal politics where they make more money. How does that benefit Alberta? Does that suggest to you that our MLAs will stand up for Alberta against the federal government, or will they placate Albertans to make sure that the claw plucks them out? Why would Jason Kenney hold a referendum on ending equalization that he knew wouldn't do anything? Because it placated Albertans, it satisfied the federal government to shut Albertans up, and ended it without having to do anything. And I am sick and tired of just sitting on my hands and watching these things and hearing about these things and not saying anything about it. Alberta has a very serious problem. We have a premier that's saying, and full disclosure, I respect her. But she campaigned on a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. Alberta sovereignty. We haven't done one single thing to pursue Alberta sovereignty. Bill 1, the Alberta Sovereignty with the United Canada Act, we're going to stand up against the federal government. Bullshit. Did you take back any of the things that we're sending there that you could stop right now? 12 or 18 ministerial orders tomorrow could end things like our royalties being deposited at CIBC in Toronto, earning them $3 million over the weekend every single week. We could do that. That's sovereignty, managing our own wealth and affairs. We could do those things. You don't want to pay carbon tax? Fine. Charge the carbon tax in Alberta and give people the rebate back. We could do that. And they haven't done anything. Why is that? What did Jason Kenney get? Appointment to the Privy Council of Canada? Golden ticket jobs at Bennett and Atco? Meanwhile, Albertans are left holding a $30 billion bag because people won't stand up for themselves. And this is where, like Ben Trudeau, he says, we have to start thinking differently. We have to start thinking sovereign and demanding these things. Oh, well, Danielle Smith passed a law that's going to give parental rights. No, it didn't, because we still have Section 1, we still live under that criminal code, and we can still end up at the Supreme Court anytime the federal government wants. This is the problem. And this is why I really think we need some major changes. If this movement is going to have any kind of fruition, we have to stop thinking like a province and start thinking like a sovereign nation. What would we do? What should we demand? All of our money that can stay here stays here. Quebec has an entire bureaucracy, 600 bureaucrats that sit in an office in Gatineau, across from Ottawa. And they look at every single dollar that goes out of Quebec to Ottawa. And if Ottawa only gives back 9 of the $10 that the federal government took, they go there and they say, "Where's my dollar?" We have 600 billion reasons to do that, and we haven't. So here's something we need to talk about. Let's talk about changing the way we think. Let's talk about realizing when our politicians are placating us with something that's not ever going to benefit us, can't possibly benefit us, and only benefits them. A referendum question on whether or not you want Alberta to take control of immigration? Okay, great. So we do. We have an Alberta Department of Immigration. Now what? What do we do with the millions and millions, tens of millions of people that immigrate to Ottawa or Ontario or the rest of Canada, are given citizenship and now have mobility rights into Alberta? And no, I'm not against immigration, but if you want to take control of immigration, there's only one way to do it. And that's a sovereign, independent Alberta. That's it. You know, the constitutionally valid questions on the upcoming referendum in October are nothing more than placating things to make you think that our government is taking control of something that they know they cannot. You're going to tell me that our premier, after spending all that time with Pierre and Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney and all of these federalists with massive appointments and massive influence right now, you're going to tell me that our government doesn't know that they cannot take control of those things? They know. And they think you're stupid. And they think I'm stupid. And I'm going to start talking about these things. And maybe if we start talking about these things, it'll put the pressure on them that they need to start acting like they're putting Alberta first. Because it's time we put Alberta first. 600 billion reasons why we should start putting Alberta first. I'm actually shaking.
Well, add something to that. We may not agree on some of the things party-wise, but when it comes to dealing with Ottawa, we 100% agree. Do you know that since 1980, Quebec has used the notwithstanding clause 1,500 times? Do you know how many times Alberta's used it? 4. And we should be using it on almost every bill. They do use it on every single bill that goes from Ottawa. They use it continually. They use the notwithstanding clause. They have also kicked the lieutenant governor out of the Quebec legislature. They do not follow in a hilarious way and put a for sale sign on his residence. They said, "We are not following the Crown." When King Charles came over and opened up Parliament, they sent a courier with a letter signed by every member of the Quebec legislature stating that he was not their king. They refused to allow royal assent in the Quebec legislature. They have if you want to be in Quebec as an immigrant, you have to answer questions, and if you answer those questions wrong, goodbye. Move to Ontario.
No programs.
No programs whatsoever. All the provincial programs are cut off. But there are no federal programs in Quebec because they've taken control of all of them. They have control over their policing. They have control over their money. They have control, their taxation, their pension plan. Everything is in Quebec's control. You know, I was raised that Quebec was the enemy. But I look at it, and we need to look at them as our example and teachers. They have taken, and they are sovereign within a united Canada. And that is what we need to do. If you're going to be sovereign within the United Canada, it's the way they're doing it, not the way we're doing it. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Do you want to say something? I think Jasper has a question.
And you know, these are difficult conversations to have, right? Because every one of us, we invest our time, our effort, our money into initiatives that we believe in. And sometimes we hear people saying things that are basically saying, hey, I don't agree with that. That's a difficult conversation to have, especially in a movement that's largely made up with independence-minded people, because we're very independent thinkers. And we have this, you know, this is why the independence-minded people tend to split, is because, yeah, there's an online question, because we have trouble even talking to each other. So, you know, if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I respect your opinion and your disagreement, and I'm absolutely happy to talk to you about it. And I would be very happy if you could change my mind on certain things. I'm open to that, and I would thank you for your efforts.
Okay, a question we have here. Why do you think that Daniel has not taken back the things that would make Alberta sovereign, like taxes, CPP, royalties, etc.?
If she wanted to, she would have done it. It is unfortunate that I have to say this. I hold this stuff back because it's going to cause people to lash out at me. Bill 2 put a referendum question as a prerequisite for us taking control of our pension. We don't need that. It's an act of the legislature notifying Ottawa, that is it. And the stipulation that our pension has to be equal to or greater than what the CPP is for us. That is it. If any premier believes in a sovereign Alberta, the very first, there's 2 things they do immediately, first 6 months in office. They take control of taxes and they take control of pension. Why? Because the golden rule. He who has the gold rules. The reason why Quebec can fight the way they do is because they collect their taxes and they send it to Ottawa. We allow Ottawa to collect our taxes on our behalf. So if we end up at the Supreme Court arguing something like, for example, Quebec's language laws, which is now in the 5th round of Supreme Court adjudication, and they've lost 4 times by now, they would be in court, and Ottawa would say, we're going to withhold your transfer until we sort this out. They can't withhold it because they already do it themselves. The second one is pensions. We know, everyone in this room, I think, knows, according to the LifeWorks report and according to the legislation, an Alberta pension plan would be far, far better than the Canada Pension Plan, even if you only consider our $3 billion overpayment. Not to mention the $345 billion that the legislation says we're due. If a premier took control of that in the first 6 months, there's a 3-year waiting period. So in year 4, the last year of that premier's time in office, people start receiving their check, and it's bigger. Employers are deducting less. We know this is what would happen. And what would that look like for the election? Our seniors, instead of getting, what's the average, 1,200 or something? 1,200. Instead of getting like 1,200 or something like that, now they're getting 1,800 or 2,000. Their lives are markedly improved, and they're looking at the leadership of the province saying, you did something wonderful, we're going to support you. Why would any government not want that? Because then the claw doesn't come and pick them out and bring them somewhere more lucrative. That's the only reason that I can think. I think that's all I got.
Anybody else? Do you want this one?
It's more like a comment on X online. This guy is making shit up. What kind of shit do you make up?
Well, I can make lots. I mean, I don't even need recipes. You know what? If anyone has any valid arguments against anything that I'm saying, I'm happy to hear it. But you know, if you're just going to be online and saying that I'm making stuff up because you don't like what I'm saying, you're a retread. I'm sorry, you really are, and that doesn't help anything. That doesn't help. If you legitimately believe that what I'm saying is wrong, challenge me and change my mind, because I'm going to make decisions based on what I'm saying. I'm going to vote based on what I'm saying. And if you think that I'm going to do something wrong, it's your job to change my mind. Maybe that person could change my mind and we'd have a better outcome, because maybe I am saying something wrong. But until they challenge me with something specific, their sounds are coming from their rear, not from their pie hole.
You know, you can say a lot, but in this modern age, there's a certain thing called ChatGPT that you can fact check. And if you can get ChatGPT to tell you something, it might actually on the first time, because it's leftist.
Yeah, it lies.
It lies. But if you challenge it a couple of times, it'll give you the straight answer. So with a little bit of research, you too can get some education.
Is that too harsh? No, that wasn't harsh enough.
At least I didn't call them retreads.
What's wrong with that?
Anything.
Those blow out all the time.
Well. Okay, well, is there any other questions?
Can I say something?
Is it a challenge of something I've said, Brad?
I was just going to say, if anybody is wanting to just do one country that became independent, look up about Sweden and Norway, because there are some, I know they joined in a strange way, but there are some things that are similar to the way we are with the government and that. So, and it's interesting how they sort of became two separate places, but they still get along with each other.
Yeah, and they actually split when we were brought into Confederation without our consent or plebiscite or referendum or anything, 1905, which is kind of interesting. Also, this is the 250th year, the 250th anniversary of the greatest experiment in freedom the world has ever seen. That's the United States. For better or for worse, the United States has maintained their freedom for 250 years, which is longer than most countries have. I think it might actually be longer than any country. And this is, pardon? Well, yeah, the Roman Empire, fell because they threw their borders open and allowed values that didn't support what they were doing to infiltrate and change from within. But that's another story. But I'm saying this because I want people to understand how interesting of a time we're living in right now. This is a very interesting time, and it's not something to be taken lightly. It's not something that requires a statement like, "Oh, this guy's just making shit up." No, this requires some serious thought. You know, we're on the anniversary of a great example of freedom. We have an opportunity to do something amazing here, to build something with Alberta that sets the example that will become the greatest example of freedom in 250 years. We have the benefit of hindsight. People ask me about our Constitution. What's our Constitution going to look like? What do you want it to look like? Have you read our Constitution? Have you read the constitutions of countries that you believe are operating well? Have you read the constitutions of countries that you believe are not operating well? What are your ideas? This is where we're at. And this is why it's so important that we keep talking. So I think is there other questions? If there's no other questions, I'll wrap it up with this. Let's Talk Alberta wants to bring this conversation to every corner of Alberta. And I'm going to stop calling it a province, by the way, because I'm going to start manifesting what I want to see. This is Alberta. I'm not going to talk about us as a province. We want to get everywhere. We want to have advertisements to bring people into these rooms specifically to challenge us on our ideas, to challenge my opinions. I want people who disagree with me to fill these seats, and I want them to attack me relentlessly as I sit up on the stage and sweat answering their questions. That would make me very happy. Except for I don't want to do it. I would rather be fishing with my son. But I'm going to spend the next few months, right up until October, and probably a little bit after, working as hard as I can to bring this conversation. So is Sheane, so is Laura, so are all of the volunteers we mentioned earlier. The only way we can do that is with the support of people who believe in this, who see the opportunity and want to help us bring the conversation to Albertans. It is not free. We don't have unlimited resources. We don't have benefactors with deep pockets. We don't have golden claws that are going to come down and pluck us out and bring us somewhere else. As a matter of fact, my outlook, if we fail at this, for my personal prosperity is bleak. It really is. I understand that, and I'm willing to risk it, and so is Sheane, and so are the other volunteers. But we need your help. So I'm asking if you or anyone you know can help fund this project, this idea, please do so. I give you my word that we are good stewards of every dollar that comes to us. We're not perfect, but we believe in what we're doing. We try and spend wisely, and we really make it work. But we do need your help. So thank you very much for coming. On your way out, and actually, if you want to talk about some stuff, we're going to stick around for a little while. We can chat face to face. But I have one more favor to ask. There's some treats left at the back. You are my barrier between me and the treats. So as you leave, please take something so that by the time I get there, there's nothing there. I would really appreciate that. And
except for the butter tarts.
No, you don't need any butter tarts. And we'll see you at the next Let's Talk. And we need help putting the chairs away. Next Let's Talk Alberta event is tomorrow in Trochu.
Yes.
Tomorrow in Trochu, and then Friday in Vulcan.
No, Thursday in Vulcan.
Oh, sorry, Thursday in Vulcan.
Right.
So join us for those as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. I do have one thing to say. As I travel these our prairie roads, so I came from east of Ponoka, came up through Forsberg, and Hewenden wins the prize for the number of Alberta flags. I saw one in Sedgwick, and I saw two private ones in that whole drive. I did not see them in people's yards, and that breaks my heart because it's so easy to put up an Alberta flag. And what does that do? You kind of go, oh, those are my people. So let us spread the province in blue. Put up a flag if you can, especially if you live next to the highway, because it makes my heart feel good.
If you live next to a highway, I have banners you can put up that are 8 foot by 16 feet. Send us a message. I actually have 3 in the van right now. So if you have a highway frontage, I'm looking for you to put a banner up there.
Danielle's going to be at the farmer in
But they cost $400, so please put them up.
people to come with the flags. It's Alberta prosperity out of Innisfail.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another Let's Talk Alberta event in Provost. My buddy Jasper there helping watch the comments and hold the mic. Thanks for sticking with us, and thanks for listening. You know, I really mean what I say. If you disagree with something I said or my opinions, please join us here. Send a comment, whatever. Send me an email. I'm happy to talk with you about it. I don't need everyone around me to agree with me. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to realize how important it is to get to places where people specifically disagree with us, and that's what we're going to try and do. In the next month or so, we have a few more, a lot more rural events to do, rural meetings to do. After that, we're going to be focusing very, very heavily on the cities. So if you are like-minded and want to help bring the conversation to the cities, please reach out to us at Let's Talk Alberta at gmail.com and let us know. We need some regional leaders there to start planning. We want to be doing, one North Edmonton event, one South Edmonton event, one North, one South Calgary event every day, starting I think next month, and that's going to take a lot of work. but we really have to do that. We got to get this conversation into the places where people generally disagree. I've found that if you take the conversation of Alberta sovereignty and you take it on the facts and you set emotions aside, every opposition point, at least that I've seen so far, against the idea of Alberta charting their own course and managing their own wealth and affairs, every opposition point is actually a reason why we must pursue this. And I can't stress this enough, folks. It is so critically important. So please help us out. We've got a lot of work to do, but I think they say many hands make light work. And in this case, many voices make many conversations. So let's talk Alberta. And yes, here's Stephanie. Meow!